Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sashnee Moodley. Researcher and analyst, Professor Raymond Suttner, joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, with Cyril Ramaphosa taking over as ANC president from Jacob Zuma, can we expect significant changes to the party's vision and policy?
You know, ANC's vision is one thing. It can visualize what it likes, but nothing happens about it in our lives unless that gets embraced in the government policy. When the ANC was a resistance movement fighting apartheid, it had a vision, and that was an alternative for people. But now the question becomes different when the ANC is also the majority party in government, or the dominant party in government. And that turns on the question of whether the vision of the ANC is a united vision, and secondly, whether they're able to implement that vision apart from resolutions of the ANC or a January the 8th statements, but in government. And the first question really is whether the ANC itself can act as a unity in relation to those who may be obstacles to implementing a new vision. And you know that the way the elections went in the ANC conference, half of the top 6 were people who were pro-Zuma people, and the NEC is apparently like that as well. But I think we've got to understand that when people see who is now in charge, they start adapting themselves to the new conditions, because their future depends on how they get on with Cyril Ramaphosa, who sooner or later will become president of the country. Now, so that may mean that the force for removal of Zuma and the force for clamping down on corruption will be stronger than it was, say, a week ago even. Even if some of those who have to go along with clamping of corruption, down on corruption, are themselves in danger, they may feel now that Zuma can't protect them. And the best thing for them is to ingratiate themselves or show great loyalty to the new president of the ANC and help him become president of the country. So the first step then is, will they call for Zuma to resign as president of the ANC? Now, it's unclear whether the NEC, I think they're having a Lekgotla this weekend, whether the NEC will call for Zuma to step down. Now, there are claims that there are negotiations about it. Now, what are the character of those negotiations? We must bear in mind that there are processes inside the ANC about whether or not they want him to resign, but there are state processes. If Zuma has charges against him, and the courts have said that the new NPA director must be appointed by Deputy President Ramaphosa, who may become president soon, and then that whole question of deputy president falls away. If he now can appoint someone who looks at the charges in good faith, there's a very good chance that Zuma will be charged at least with the original 783 charges, and not charges, counts, and it may also be that he will face charges in relation to state capture. So the tide is turning. We've seen this with the asset forfeiture unit moving on Trillion and so forth. But I don't know. You know, I think also what's very important is that the opposition is in disarray at the moment, and this may make it easier for Ramaphosa to stamp his mark. People in the media and so forth, are very favourably disposed. Business, very favourably disposed towards Ramaphosa. So he's got a honeymoon period.
Now, you mentioned corruption, and in his January 8th statement, he did say that the ANC needs to move away from this culture of corruption. With his new NEC in place, do you think it will be easier for him to clamp down on corruption in the party?
Well, it's not going to be easy because claims of corruption surround the Deputy President Mabuza. They surround the Secretary General Ismachashule. They are indirectly affecting the Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte, whose son-in-law is involved with the Guptas. So that there are people who are amongst the top 6 are in danger or are likely to become a focus. I think I just heard on the radio when I was coming here that it's possible that some people in leadership and in cabinet could be arrested if these processes where the South African Federation of Trade Unions laid the charges, if the process continues. So it'll be difficult to operate as a collective if one or two of the top 6 are arrested, and it could lead to a situation where some of the membership who support those people are restive about Ramaphosa. On the other hand, I think no one really likes the fact that money is being stolen from the treasury, except those who are getting the money. So it may well be that things are going easier now with the new leadership, and maybe that it can move on corruption.
Now, in an interview with ENCA, Ramaphosa also mentioned removing Zuma, and he said that if or when that happens, Zuma shouldn't be embarrassed. Is that a sign of his character, or how would you interpret that?
Well, you know, he's trying to behave in a professional manner. Like, it's not correct for him to endorse the booing of the sitting state president. So he told the crowd not to boo. And we mustn't read too much into this question of Zuma's dignity. He doesn't want to swear at Zuma or say, Zuma, you're a crook, or the sort of thing in public discourse, and that is a correct way of conducting himself. However, that doesn't mean that Zuma can't stand trial and land up in jail even, because some people have said that, you know, they try to get immunity for him, all of that. You can't. There's no provision for that in South African law. So I think what Ramaphosa was doing was trying to behave in a professional manner, whatever his private views might be on the question.
Now, still on removing Zuma, there have been reports that some in the NEC, some in Zuma's camp in the ANC, are also now calling for Ramaphosa to take action and to remove Zuma. Is this a sign of unity in the party?
I think it's a sign, as I was saying in the beginning, is that when people see the way the wind is blowing, you know, every time there's a change of leadership imminent, people start jumping ship. Because there's some people who are anti-Mbeki, became pro-Mbeki, who were pro-Mbeki and became pro-Zuma, and anti-Mbeki, who were pro-Zuma now become pro-Ramaphosa. It shows that ANC is not the same as an organization of people who thought only about the liberation of the country. They're also thinking, and they may be thinking first about themselves and looking after themselves, and the way the tide is blowing is that way.
Thanks for speaking with us, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about the transition from Zuma to Ramaphosa.